List, Her- Hercules Invictus, and we are going to talk to him about time travel. Now, Hercules just wrote a chapter, I believe, for the Llewellyn Publishing Company.
Yes, but that wasn't on time travel. For Llewellyn, it was on theurgy, which is an ancient way of connecting with the divine. For Zontar Press, with Tim Schwartz, I wrote the article on time travel.
Oh, well, great. Now, I have read that time travel has been done by world governments for many decades. Do you think that's true?
I think we all do time travel all the time, pretty much. I can give some examples, but I'm sure the government has attempted to do time travel, and I'm sure they've succeeded in one way or another.
Well, supposedly they can bring objects from one time to another and people, you know. There's a wonderful book by Alfred Labremont Weber called The Omniverse. And he states that the US government has indeed been time traveling for many, many decades. That they knew, for example, that Obama would one day be president. So they tapped him when he was very young and, trained him and all sorts of things.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. If supernatural entities can master time travel, I have no doubt that the United States government and other governments with all the resources would be able to master it in one way or another.
So, how do you think it's done? Supposedly it's done by machine. What do you think?
I feel we can do it without machines. I'll give you one example. When I was very young, I used to dream of the mythic Hercules coming and visiting me, and he would give me information about my life and make suggestions and tell me things in this period of my life are going to be difficult and so on and so forth. So I had that communication going from a very young age. When I was much older and I was studying the occult, I was practicing various techniques of meditation and astral projection and other forms of mind control. And I found myself in a place where I could enter past memories. So I wanted to check out those memories, of course, because they played such a pivotal role in my life. And what I discovered a way of entering the memories like they were 3D, except that I myself, as an older person, was in the position of the mythic Hercules. So I was sharing information about my life with my younger self. And my younger self remembered this and conveyed it, and it influenced my younger life into making me the adult who then went back and experienced this from the side of the person giving the advice. So
I
that's time travel.
Well, don't you think it really was Hercules who came to you? And I mean, why
That's
wouldn't it be?
that's a separate show, but in my experiences, I was the person who was consciously giving my younger self the same information that my younger self received and remembered when I was a kid. Other people have reported this phenomena. Shelley Kerr, who's the past life lady, and Robert Monroe of Monroe Institute, in their writings, and Shelley I've had on the show numerous times. They've shared having this type of experience where they thought they were talking to a wise person, and it turns out they were talking to just an older version of themselves who lived through a lot of things and was able to prepare them for these things coming up in their life.
Okay, when I was a child, now and then, I would feel a presence and I would get uncomfortable. And today, I sometimes remember being a child and see myself like in my mother's bedroom with my mother just talking.
Hmm.
And it only lasts a split second. And then I leave. And I'm wondering today, am I the presence that I felt all those years ago?
That's a possibility because you're basically describing the same phenomenon that I'm describing, except mine seems to be a lot more visual and to have lasted a little bit longer. But it's the same thing. It's a loop, and it contradicts our understanding of time because an older me went back and gave advice to a younger me that influenced that younger me to become that older me who went back and gave the advice. So
Mhm.
the presence too, it's the same, loop. And I believe that there are alternate futures. Like one example is I was thinking for all of moving out to San Diego a few decades ago, maybe 3 decades ago.
Mhm.
And I went there, I went on interviews, I was in the human services at the time. I went looking for apartments, I was really set on going there. And while I was going there, I started having this weird dream experience where I was an old man sitting in a nursing home. And it was very realistic, very vivid. And there were these two young ladies, which I assumed were my daughters because they kept calling me dad. And I didn't remember who they were. And I remembered other people that they didn't know anything about. So, of course, dad's has dementia, or he's senile, or he has Alzheimer's, or whatever. And I felt very confused and so forth. But I was having a difficult time remembering these people. I kept having this experience. And then when I decided not to go to San Diego, because at the time the economy crashed, then there were flash floods, then there was an invasion of spiders, then coyotes were coming out of the mountains and stealing cats. So I decided not to go to San Diego. Um, but then those experiences stopped. I didn't have them anymore. So I imagine that would have been a possible future. If I did go to San Diego, I would have found myself in that type of circumstance.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, but you can quite consciously choose. I remember, kids I went to school with getting into heavy street drugs. I didn't. And that's why
Mhm.
I'm here and they're not. I mean, you can consciously say, no, I don't want this.
Right. You can choose, but you could also experience what that future would be like, and then make a better decision.
I didn't want to even in fantasy experience what that would be like. Short, quick story. I had a friend who, after a dance, we were all together and he said, wow, let's get some works, meaning heroin apparatus. I walked away. I said, no, thanks, not for me. 10 years later, they found him dead in a warehouse of a heroin overdose. He had died, and it was winter, like he died 2 days earlier, but his body was preserved because it was cold. And it
So
was his father's warehouse.
you were wiser
So,
than your friend and many people.
huh?
You were much wiser than your friend
Oh,
and
yeah.
other
I
people.
was not going to go that way.
Hmm.
I had enough problems. Come on, I was queer as a $9 bill. My mother was dying of cancer. I need more problems? I don't think so. So I was 14 at the time. So anyway, so I did not do that. And I think any sensible person can see, that this road is not a good one and this one is a good one.
But sometimes you don't. I had an experience when, again, I was younger and it was recurrent. And I kept seeing myself dressed in a particular way and wearing particular things and getting into a horrible car accident.
Oh, yeah, I've had those experiences, sure.
So I've driven in my life. Now I'm not driving, so I guess it's not something I need to worry about. But I decided never to wear clothes like that again.
I once bought a beautiful, not cheap green t-shirt for summer. And I
Mhm.
kept seeing myself being run over by a car in it. I gave it to Goodwill without ever wearing it.
So there you go. We picked the same solution. I never wore these things ever again, and I'm still around. But I
Yeah,
believe we get flashes of those possible futures,
but I
things
think
that happen.
everyone does, don't you?
Yes, that's why I said everybody could do it. We don't need governments with their multi-million-dollar contracts and machines. That we have it inside of ourselves to experience the future, try the future, return from the future, communicate with our younger selves or with other people. And I believe that our present changes in subtle ways, like what's called the Mandela effect.
Which I totally believe in.
Me too. And for me, one of my Mandela effect things is Atlantis and Edgar Casey. When I was growing up, people were still waiting for Atlantis to rise off the coast of Bimini.
Mhm.
Something was rising, they were monitoring, but then it didn't happen. But then when this was when I was much younger, and again, they were waiting for this to happen. Then we went to Greece and they had a Greek magazine, and I was looking through it, and they had an article about Atlantis rising from Bimini. And when I was in America, that didn't happen. And here in Greece, it happened, and they had pictures. And then I
Well,
discovered,
yeah, I remember those pictures with boulevards and sort of
yes,
idols and all that. Yes.
ziggurats and all sorts of things.
Exactly, yes. I
So
thought too.
reality changes because sometimes if you go to YouTube or other news sources and put in Bimini Atlantis, sometimes there's nothing about it appearing. Sometimes there's nothing about it not appearing, but the opposite is true. And sometimes there's like mixed memories of what happened. So that's one of the things for me that means I've like found myself in like an alternate present.
Do you remember a 70s product called Stovetop Stuffing?
Yes,
It didn't exist.
but I remember it, and so do
I
you.
do too.
So do
And
many
it
others.
doesn't exist. Where did it go? Where did the records of it go?
I think realities kind of merge after a while. They edit them and they smack them back together or something very
Well,
similar
no, but
to that.
we all remember that supposedly Nelson Mandela died in 1990 and Jane Goodall in 1991. Well, Nelson Mandela did not die in 1990.
Right.
He lived much longer, and Jane Goodall is still alive today.
Yes. But they died at the time for in the realities that some of us inhabited.
Do you think, well, there's this man who supposedly is from 2039 who came here. He's very famous. And he said, well, I had to change the timeline because if I hadn't, there would have been World War III. So supposedly he's the one who changed the timeline, which accounts for the Mandela effect. So I don't know, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if he did that. Is that Titor? I think there was a guy named
Yeah, I think
Titor
so. John something
that
or
changed
other.
the timeline. But I don't know. A lot of people I know followed him and they've spoken about him at great length, and they've asked me how I feel. I never really followed that
I
story.
don't either. I don't know it in detail, but I think I heard him once on Coast to Coast. And I don't know how different the timeline is. I mean, this is ridiculous. I used to use a shade of lipstick by a company called Westmore,
Mhm.
called OO Orange. Well, there is a company called Three Custom Color Experts, and they have the whole Westmore recipe catalog of how to make lipstick. And I asked for this color. They said, it's not here. I
Mhm.
said, I used it for years. What do you mean it's not here? He said, it's not here. It doesn't exist. Duh. Ooh. I mean, you know,
Yes, it's very disconcerting when something you remember and other people remember and can describe and can share the information that they have on it, and then other people don't, and there's no proof that it ever happened. But it's proof that we time travel, that there are alternate realities, and sometimes we're in one, and sometimes we're in another one. My aunt tried to teach me this the dreamlike nature of life. When I was 17, she tapped on my shoulder and she said, "How old are you?" And I said, and I knew she knew how old I was, but I said, "Okay, I'm 17." She goes, "Next time I tap you on your shoulder, you'll be 35, and remember this moment." So of course I forgot it, among all the other moments that come and go. But when I was 35, she tapped me on the shoulder, and then I remembered, and she said, "Remember I tapped you on your shoulder when you were 17?" I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Well, now it's 18 years later. Um, what do you call it? How did it seem the passage of the earlier moment to this moment?" So I told her it seems like it just happened. It's like, it just happened, very recently. And she goes, "All right, when you're 65, I'm gonna tap you on the shoulder and then
how
tell
old
me."
is this aunt of yours? She must live forever.
Well, no, she passed on, but I'll be 65 this year. So I'm curious to see what will happen on my
Will
65th.
she tap you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But even if she doesn't tap me, I remember this incident, and the answer that I can give now is 65, going back to the past, whatever, 30 years, is that it seems like a dream. It seems like, again, these things just happen. Lots of other things happen, but it seems like these things just happened as if they happened in a memory or in a dream, that they happened not 30 years ago, that
Do
they
you think
happened
our
right
dead
now.
loved ones are alive in parallel time? In other
Yes,
words,
yes.
someone who dies, my mother died when she was 44 of cancer, but is she alive in another reality?
I
In other
believe
words,
so.
a parallel reality where it's the solid world, not heaven or anything. You know what I mean?
Right, I believe so. I used to investigate hauntings and things like that, and what happened with a lot of ghosts that or whatever you want to call them, the discarnates, disembodied
I'm
people,
sure.
um, they are we're the ghosts to them. They're living in like a dream reality, and
I've heard
our
that, yeah.
presence is disrupting their world. And the ones that can communicate, the ones that aren't stuck in loops, because some people are just stuck reliving the same
Right,
type
and
of
they're not even
moment.
real ghosts. They're just like imprints on the atmosphere. Yeah.
Yes. So the ones that can experience and communicate, you're the threatening thing to their reality. So they're living in a particular reality, and you're the ghost. I think we lost sound. I think we lost sound. I can't hear.
Thank you. We had a little technical difficulty. The microphone fell down
Oh, okay.
and the battery came out, so we had to fix it. But yeah, there are stories of, okay, there's a famous story about a woman in the forest in 1900 with her daughter, and suddenly she saw a man who, by our lights, would have been dressed in 1970s clothing, and she was scared to death. And there's that famous story of the two spinsters walking
Yes.
through the grounds of Versailles in 1904, and they supposedly saw Marie Antoinette and others, and they basically built new careers on this. So I don't know, but yeah, I wonder. So in a funny kind of way, you and I might be dead in an
Yes.
alternate real. We might have been in a car crash or hit by a car or whatever, or caught COVID and died or something.
Yes. And there are some stories I'm not ready to share yet, but they would indicate that basically we're not on the physical plane. We think we are, and in the way that most people understand reality, we are, but this place isn't physical. It's a lot more astral. Our minds
Well,
affects everything.
Elon Musk says that we
Yeah, I
live in a
know that Elon
simulation.
Musk says it, but I do believe that everything from the language we're speaking to the clothes we're wearing to the rooms that we're in to the streets that we navigate to get from where we are to where we're going, all
Mhm.
that are the products, all these are the products of imagination.
Probably. Whose
So
imagination, though?
somebody thought it up, somebody drew it, somebody figured out how to build it, somebody built it, you decorate it with
You mean
your.
some teenager in his room with his computer, that kind of thing?
No, all of us create our reality. We
Oh,
don't
right,
react to
yes.
what's actually there. We react to what we think is going on. So we could be totally wrong about what's going on, but we're reacting to something that's inside our head. And every item we find ourselves in and everything we do and everything we say is not real. It's something we've been convinced is real. So we're talking language. We didn't invent the language. The language started someplace, it evolved, it changed, it modified, and we're using something that we didn't invent. And it's totally imaginary because we're so many different languages showing the creativity of so many different cultures.
Hmm.
So we're living more in an imaginary rather than a natural world. We're not living in the imagination of the gods anymore. We're living in our own imaginations.
But didn't we always?
I don't know. My animals can't speak. They seem to have imaginations and they dream, but I don't know how early that. But yeah, I guess you can make the point. My dog misinterprets events all the time. She protects us from passing trucks and kids walking
Exactly,
to
yeah.
school, and so she has this whole paranoid fantasy inside her head of what's going on outside the door, and she reacts to it. So yes, but that makes me think that we're in an astral experience. We're in an emotional type of imaginary experience. Dreams are astral, astral projections are astral. So I think we're in an experience like that rather than being in the purely physical world.
Isn't that interesting? Well, that would be wonderful. In other words, we're probably sparks of light imagining an Earth existence.
Yes, I believe it's something like that. When I meditate and it takes me there, we seem to be like balls of light with tendrils. like thin tendrils, like
Right,
tints.
yes, no, I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
Like we look kind of like a type of jellyfish, I guess. That'd be the closest thing
Yes.
to describe it to.
When I was doing the show at another studio, this same show, but we had a different studio, the guest was here and her friend kept taking pictures with her phone. And in one of the pictures, there was this golden orb going into my solar plexus. And we
Hmm.
all wondered, what is that? I mean, what was it? Do you know? And it looked just like what you said, a kind of
These things
golden
float
jellyfish with
around.
tendrils.
Yeah, these things float around, and they appear in all sorts of phenomenon, like UFO phenomenon. They appear in like a lot of visionary experiences. I
Well,
wrote a
I thought it
chapter
might be
on
my mother coming into me to help me do the show, actually.
it. It might very well be.
Yeah.
I'm not the type of psychic who can tell you, can answer these types of questions, but I've seen these orbs my entire life, and sometimes they're little and they float like in groups. Other times they're individual and they're more like
Sure,
the
and you see little pops of light around the room sometimes,
right.
often when you're thinking of the dead.
Yes. And
Yeah, I
I
see
believe
that all
that
the time, sure.
we take that type of form when we do like astral projection. I
Hmm.
believe the dead have taken that form as well. I've seen a lot of videos of people who are investigating ghostly happenings, and they often record the orbs, both kinds of orbs as well.
Oh yeah, and haunted houses, there's the Merchant's House here in Manhattan, and they often rent it out as a wedding venue. And wedding people complain, well, we took all these expensive pictures with a professional photographer, and look, there are all these balls of light all over the place. What's going on here? Well, it's a haunted house, folks, right?
Right. In ancient Greek thought, the land
It's
of
faulty,
dreams.
folks.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. In ancient Greek thought, the land of dreams bordered the land of the dead and our world. So it was possible to meet those who have died in dream. And in ancient Greek thought, again, there was a place called Erebus, which was half in this world and half in the next world.
Hmm.
So back then, they believed that you needed to pay the ferryman to cross the river Styx and go to
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
dead. So if you didn't have the money, you had to hang out on this side of the river Styx. So there were cities, and they had, entertainment and amusement and all sorts of things. So people were stuck here for a few hundred years till they can get across.
Mhm.
So the dead could sometimes visit you because Erebus borders our world as well. So in antiquity, it was no big deal to encounter the dead. And if you got
Well,
things, the dead were reminding you to do something.
well, they say that the dead are in fact right here, but they're in a different dimension, so we can't see them. And for them to be seen here, i.e., to materialize, they have to slow their vibration considerably, which isn't easy, really. So, but they're right here, but we can't see them.
Right. But they can see us.
Yeah, but fuzzy wuzzy, they don't see us very clearly unless they want to.
And they could get totally lost in the dream that they're in, which is separate than the dream that we're in,
Hmm.
uh, and not see us at all. So totally tune us out until we intrude on their world. And
And then we're their ghosts.
yes.
Yeah. So anyway, so do you think we'll ever crack the mystery of time travel?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I think we've had these experiences all the time. Um, and I'll give another one that's more time travel sounding than the ones I've shared. I went to the Oracle at Delphi
Wow.
younger,
Well,
and
you're
kind of
Greek,
in
and
Greece,
from
yeah.
and you went to Greece when you were a kid. Yeah.
And this was when I was an adult that I went, but I went as an adult. I went to the Oracle at Delphi, and they had a tour guide. And the tour guide was saying a bunch of things that I knew were false. I knew they were false from my reading, but also some of the other things I didn't really read about. I knew that, no, he's wrong. So I told him he was wrong. And so I was mocked, for being an ignorant tourist. It's
Right.
like,
Oh,
well,
this American, who does he think he is?
yes, so I explained that I am Greek, but I told them that no, the oracle did not sit outside in the moonlight or in the sunlight, that there was a part that you had to go down under and so forth. So huffingly, the tour guide said, where is this door? And I said, come, I'll show you. So I walked them through the oracle of Delphi, and I came to a place like a cave with a mouth, but if you started going in it, it had been closed off. So I couldn't take them further
Could
into
that
it.
have been a past life memory of yours?
Yeah, it could have been a past life memory or another dimensional. I might have been there in dream or so forth. We can travel with our minds too back into the past and
Oh,
see.
I agree. Sometimes you even smell the smells. Like if
Yes,
I want to go back to say 1913, I can smell the horses, hear them clomping around,
yes.
even smell the people.
Hmm.
Bathing was not a
No, it wasn't
popular
a big thing
custom in those.
back
No,
then.
no, no. Anyway, we're out of time. My guest has been the fabulous Hercules Invictus,
Thank
who
you.
has a blog on Blog Talk Radio and on Zoom, and soon to be seen on Manhattan Neighborhood Network.
Looking forward to that.
We all are. We can't wait to have you back on. Hercules had a show 20 years ago, and now he's back. Anyway, I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. Hey, even if no one else loves you, I love you. I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Okay. You were great. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. You were great. You didn't, can you respond to that? He's not hearing me.